Ever since the passage of the Clinton Immigration Reform Bill of 1996 and the Patriot Act of 2001, the border between the United States and Mexico has turned into a war zone. Undocumented workers have become the new terrorists, and the prison industry is profiting from their unfortunate circumstances. Now, according to a May 2011 report by the Detention Watch Network, since the late 1990s, the number of people held in immigration detention has exploded. On any given day, ICE detains over 33,000 immigrants, and this is in 2011. This is more than triple the number of beds since 1996. And their report that was submitted in May 2011, it states in the last 5 years alone, the annual number of immigrants detained and the cost detaining them has doubled. In 2010, approximately 392,000 immigrants were detained, costing taxpayers $1.77 billion at an average of $122 a day per bed. And nearly 2.5 million individuals have passed through immigration detention facilities since 2003. So for immigrants, this expansion has meant weeks, months, and sometimes years in jails, often under inhumane conditions, with little or no access to counsel, to family, or to the outside world. So for private prison corporations, this expansion has meant big profits. The states with the highest average daily populations in private facilities in 2009 were Texas, Georgia, and Arizona. Now, the three largest corporations invested in immigration detention today are Corrections Corporation of America. This is the 2011 report. They have since changed their name, and we'll learn about that in a little while, but it was Corrections Corporation of America, the GEO Group Incorporated, and Management and Training Corporation, MTC. Now, the private prison industry has been very explicit about its intention to influence immigration detention policy and practice in accordance with its own profit motive. So the prison industry wants the federal government to continue to detain immigrants. And so there's this massive roundup so as to create profits for the private prison industry. Let's go to Democracy Now! And if you could just find a place by which to come back. I don't want to use the entire 8 minutes because I'm realizing that we're going to run out of time. So if we could just go to about the 4 or 5 minute mark, but making sure that we cover the immigrant prison industry. Thank you.
Well, by now, global markets have rebounded after plummeting upon the news of Trump's victory. Stocks of some companies surged, including the largest private prison contractor, Corrections Corporation of America, which recently changed its name to CoreCivic and is up 43% since Trump's victory. GEO Group, another private prison contractor, is up 21%. Meanwhile, stocks also surged for many military contractors, including Raytheon, General Dynamics, Lockheed Martin, and Boeing.
For more, we're joined by two guests. William Hartung is director of the Arms and Security Project at the Center for International Policy. His article for Huffington Post, Trump's Pentagon plan could cost almost $1 trillion. Smart diplomacy would be cheaper, more effective. Also here, Seth Reed-Wessler, reporter with Investigative Fund, who's been following private detention centers. His latest piece for The Nation is headlined, ICE plans to reopen the very same private prison the feds just closed. Welcome you both to Democracy Now! So the night of the election, it looked like S&P was going way down, but there were certain industries that surged, private prisons and military contractors. Talk about the military contractors, Bill.
Well, the contractors paid attention to what Trump was saying, and he gave a speech in October talking about increasing Pentagon spending, bigger Navy, bigger Army, bigger Marines, bigger Air Force, a Star Wars program. And it was pretty much tied to a proposal by the Heritage Foundation, which, as you mentioned, would cost close to $1 trillion more over the next 10 years than the huge amount the Pentagon already had in store for itself. So they're popping champagne corks. There was an article by Lauren Thompson, who's basically a paid flack for the industry, masquerading as a journalist, who said, happy days are here again for the defense industry. So I think our job is to make sure that that is not the case.
But how would Trump skew that with his claims that he's against many more military interventions by the United States and these regime change policies of the Obama administration?
Well, there's no real logic, as is often the case with Trump. He claims he doesn't want regime change. He claims he can make the Pentagon more efficient. He wants allies to spend more. That would logically lead to lower Pentagon spending. But he's kind of tied in with the neocons, with the industry. He seems to be taking the Ronald Reagan peace through strength argument. You can never spend enough on the Pentagon, then you decide how to use it. So he's basically he's made the Pentagon a cash machine again for contractors. And I think, those contradictions might be useful in trying to peel off some of his supporters, the ones who are reachable, to oppose some of these policies.
And Seth Wessler, what about the prison industry and the private prison industry especially?
Well, immediately after it was clear that Trump had won, we saw the private prison companies, CCA and Geo Group, their stocks just soar. And those are not things that happen out there in the economy on their own. They happen because people know that Donald Trump has run a campaign consistently describing what he will do and how he will treat immigrants. He's been actually fairly clear about that. He said that he will deport millions of people. He says that he will repeal Obama's executive actions that protect young undocumented immigrants, so-called dreamers, from deportation. All of these people will be could be detained if picked up by immigration authorities, and the size of our detention system is poised to grow. The Trump campaign has also said that it wants to impose new mandatory minimum sentences on people who re-enter the country after deportation, requiring that people who return to the United States are handed years-long sentences for that act of crossing the border, which, if legislation like that passes, will result in multiple new prisons having to be built. The Obama administration recently ordered the Bureau of Prisons to begin closing.
Okay, so this particular film clip, one of the reasons why I'm showing it is because it's sharing with us, again, once with the election of Trump, how the stocks just soared for the immigration prison industry. And again, they have an invested policy, or they have an investment in this administration because they want immigration detention policy. It feeds their bottom line. They are making money. They're making money off the backs of immigrants. And so as citizens, again, the taxes that you pay go to finance this private prison industry. So just understand, again, the significance of what immigration reform is all about. Now,